The Deep Space Research Station Orion 7 floated silently in the void, its sensors scanning the endless expanse of the cosmos. On the observation deck, Dr. Elena Vasquez stared at the data streaming across her console. A faint, repeating signal had been detected from the edge of known space, a signal that didn't match any known celestial phenomenon. She adjusted her headset, listening intently. The signal was weak, almost imperceptible, but it carried a rhythm that suggested intelligence. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she isolated the frequency and began decoding it. Minutes turned into hours as the algorithm worked, and then, finally, the message appeared on her screen. It was short, desperate, and unmistakably a plea for help. To any who hear this, we are under siege. Our world burns. Send aid. The message was relayed to Earth within moments. In the United Nations Emergency Council chamber, representatives from every nation gathered to discuss the implications. The signal originated from the Clivar system, home to the Clivarians, a peaceful, technologically advanced species known for their contributions to galactic science and diplomacy. The Clivarians had always been allies to humanity, offering guidance and support as Earth took its first steps into the interstellar community. Now, they were under attack, and their call for help had reached Earth's ears. The Council was divided. Some argued that humanity was in no position to intervene. Earth's fleet was small, outdated, and ill-equipped to face a threat capable of overwhelming the Clivarians. Others, however, saw this as a moral imperative. If we turn our backs on them now, argued Admiral James Carter, we lose not just an ally, but our humanity. We may not have the biggest fleet or the most advanced tech, but we have something the Clivarians don't: grit, determination, and the will to fight for what's right. After hours of heated debate, the decision was made. Earth would answer the call. The fleet, though modest, was crewed by the best humanity had to offer: veterans of countless conflicts, engineers who could turn scrap into functional tech, and idealists who believed in the cause. The ships were old, their hulls scarred from previous battles, but they were ready to serve one more time. As the fleet prepared for departure, the mood on Earth was a mix of fear and pride. Families said their goodbyes, knowing the risks but also understanding the importance of the mission. The fleet launched under the watchful eyes of billions. The ships, bathed in the light of Earth's sun, ascended into the heavens, their engines roaring with purpose. As they entered hyperspace, the crew braced themselves for the unknown. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew that this was their moment to prove humanity's worth. The Clivarians had called for help, and Earth had answered. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The journey through hyperspace was tense. The crew trained relentlessly, preparing for every possible scenario. The fleet's commander, Admiral Carter, addressed the crew over the intercom. "We're heading into the unknown," he said, his voice steady. "We don't know what we'll find when we arrive, but we do know this. We're not just fighting for Clivarians. We're fighting for the idea that no one, no matter how small or weak, should face tyranny alone. We're fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy, and we're fighting because it's the right thing to do." As the fleet neared the Clivar system, the tension aboard the ships was palpable. The crew knew they were walking into a war zone, but they also knew they had no other choice. The Clivarians had called for help, and Earth had answered. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The fleet exited hyperspace on the edge of the Clivar system, and the crew braced themselves for what they would find. The signal had summoned Earth's most dangerous fleet, and now they were ready to prove why. The fleet emerged from hyperspace on the outskirts of the Clivar system, and the sight that greeted them was one of utter devastation. The once thriving system was now a war zone. The Clivar homeworld, a vibrant blue-green planet, was shrouded in smoke and fire. Orbiting the planet were the remnants of the Clivarian defense fleet, shattered hulls and drifting debris. Above it all loomed the Zorth Armada, a massive, menacing force of sleek, black ships bristling with weapons. The Zorth were a species known for their ruthlessness and technological superiority, and they had brought their full might to bear on the Clivarians. The human fleet immediately went on high alert. Admiral Carter ordered the ships into a defensive formation, knowing they were outgunned and outnumbered. The Zorth, however, seemed to take little notice of the newcomers. To them, the human fleet was insignificant, a minor nuisance at best. This underestimation would prove to be their first mistake. The humans, though outmatched, were not without their own advantages. Their ships, though outdated, were rugged and versatile, and their crews were resourceful and determined. The fleet established contact with the Cliverians, who were shocked that anyone had come to their aid. The Cliverian leader, a frail but resolute figure named Counselor Valen, appeared on the comms. "You should not have come," Valen said, his voice heavy with despair. "The Zorth are unstoppable. They will destroy you as they have destroyed us. Flee while you still can." Admiral Carter's response was firm. "We don't run from bullies," he said, "and we don't abandon our friends. Tell us how we can help." The Cliverians provided critical intelligence on the Zorth's tactics and weaknesses. The Zorth relied heavily on their central command ship, a massive vessel that coordinated their entire fleet. If the humans could disable or destroy it, the Zorth's forces would be thrown into disarray. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. The fleet split into two groups, one to engage the Zorth directly and draw their attention, and the other to execute a covert strike on the command ship. The battle began with a ferocity that took even the seasoned human crews by surprise. The Zorth ships were fast and deadly, their weapons cutting through the human fleet's defenses with ease. But the humans fought with tenacity that stunned their enemies. They used every trick in the book, hit-and-run attacks, feints, and improvised tactics, to keep the Zorth off balance. The Cliverians, inspired by humanity's bravery, rallied their remaining forces and joined the fight. Together, they managed to disrupt the Zorth's orbital bombardment, buying precious time for the evacuation of Cliverian civilians. The covert strike team, led by Commander Sarah Mitchell, approached the Zorth command ship under the cover of debris and sensor jamming. Their ship, a modified frigate, was equipped with a boarding pod designed to breach the enemy's hull. The team consisted of engineers, soldiers, and a few Cliverian volunteers who knew the layout of Zorth's ships. As they neared their target, the tension aboard the frigate was palpable. This was their best shot, and failure was not an option. The boarding pod launched, slamming into the Zorth command ship with a bone-jarring impact. The team quickly breached the hull and made their way to the ship's core systems. They encountered heavy resistance, but their training and determination saw them through. The engineers planted a virus in the Zorth systems, disabling their shields and communications. The Zorth fleet, now cut off from their command ship, began to falter. The human and Cliverian forces seized the opportunity, launching a coordinated counterattack. The Zorth, caught off guard by the sudden shift in the battle, began to retreat. The human fleet, though battered and bloodied, pressed the advantage. The Zorth command ship, now crippled, was destroyed in a massive explosion that lit up the void. The remaining Zorth forces, leaderless and disorganized, fled the system. The battle was won, but the cost had been high. The human fleet was decimated, and many lives had been lost. But they had done the impossible. They had turned the tide against a superior enemy and saved the Cliverians from annihilation. As the dust settled, the survivors took stock of their victory. The Cliverians, grateful beyond words, began the long process of rebuilding. The humans, though weary and mourning their dead, knew they had made a difference. They had proven that even the smallest, weakest species could stand up to tyranny and prevail. The Zorth had been humbled, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The signal had summoned Earth's most dangerous fleet, and they had answered the call. The Zorth Armada, though in disarray, was far from defeated. Their retreat was tactical, a regrouping rather than a surrender. The humans and Cliverians knew this was only a temporary reprieve. Admiral Carter gathered his remaining officers and the Cliverian leadership to devise a plan that would ensure the Zorth could not return. The stakes were clear. If the Zorth regrouped and launched another assault, the combined forces of humanity and Cliverians would not survive a second battle. They needed a decisive strike, something bold enough to cripple the Zorth's ability to wage war. The Cliverians provided critical intelligence. The Zorth's command structure relied heavily on a network of relay stations scattered across nearby systems. These stations coordinated their fleets, allowing for rapid communication and strategic maneuvering. If the humans could destroy or disable these relays, the Zorth would be blind and disorganized, unable to mount an effective counterattack. The plan was audacious, A small strike team would infiltrate the nearest relay station, plant explosives, and escape before the Zorth could respond. The mission was fraught with risk, but it was their only chance to secure a lasting victory. The strike team, led by Commander Sarah Mitchell, was composed of the best soldiers and engineers humanity had to offer. They were joined by a handful of Cliverian operatives who knew the layout of Zorth installations. The team boarded a modified frigate, its hull reinforced, and its engines tuned for speed and stealth. As they approached the relay station, the tension aboard the ship was palpable. The station was heavily guarded, its defenses designed to repel any attack. The team knew their success depended on precision, timing, and a fair amount of luck. The infiltration began under the cover of a debris field. The frigate's sensors jammed to avoid detection. The team launched a boarding pod, its trajectory calculated to avoid the station's defensive turrets. The pod slammed into the station's hull, breaching it with a controlled explosion. The team quickly moved in, their weapons at the ready. The interior of the station was a maze of corridors and control rooms, each one a potential death trap. The Zorth soldiers stationed there were well-trained and heavily armed, but the strike team's training and determination gave them the edge. The engineers worked quickly, planting explosives at key structural points while the soldiers held off the Zorth defenders. The team encountered fierce resistance, but they fought with ferocity that stunned their enemies. The Cliverian operatives provided invaluable support, using their knowledge of Zorth technology to disable security systems and open sealed doors. The mission was a race against time, every second bringing them closer to discovery and annihilation. As the final explosive was planted, the team made their way back to the boarding pod. The Zorth, now fully aware of the intrusion, launched a counterattack. The station's corridors became a battlefield, the air filled with the sounds of gunfire and explosions. The team fought their way through, their determination unwavering. They reached the pod just as the Zorth reinforcements closed in. The pod launched, its engines roaring as it sped away from the station. Moments later, the explosives detonated, tearing the relay station apart in a blinding flash of light. The destruction of the relay station sent shockwaves through the Zorth fleet. Without their central coordination, the Zorth ships were left isolated and vulnerable. The human and Cliverian forces seized the opportunity, launching a coordinated assault on the remaining Zorth ships. The battle was fierce, but the Zorth, now leaderless and disorganized, were no match for combined might of their enemies. One by one, the Zorth ships were destroyed or driven from the system. The victory was hard-won, but it was decisive. The Zorth Armada, once a seemingly unstoppable force, was now in retreat. The humans and Cliverians had done the impossible, turning the tide against a superior enemy through sheer determination and ingenuity. The cost had been high. Many lives had been lost, and the human fleet was battered and bloodied, but they had secured a future for Cliverians and proven humanity's worth to the galaxy. As the dust settled, the survivors took stock of their victory. The Cliverians, grateful beyond words, began the long process of rebuilding. The humans, though weary and mourning their dead, knew they had made a difference. They had proven that even the smallest, weakest species could stand up to tyranny and prevail. The Zorth had been humbled, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The signal had summoned Earth's most dangerous fleet, and they had answered the call. The aftermath of the battle was a somber yet triumphant moment for both humanity and the Cliverians. The Zorth Armada, once an unstoppable force, had been driven from the system, their fleet scattered and their command structure in ruins. The Clivar homeworld, though scarred by the conflict, was safe. The human fleet, though battered and diminished, had achieved the impossible. As the survivors gathered to assess the damage and honor the fallen, a sense of unity and purpose began to emerge. This was not just a victory for Cliverians. It was a victory for the idea that even the smallest and weakest could stand against tyranny and prevail. The Cliverians, overwhelmed with gratitude, began the long process of rebuilding their world. The humans, though exhausted and mourning their dead, stayed to assist. Engineers worked alongside Cliverian technicians to repair damaged infrastructure, while medics tended to the wounded. The collaboration between the two species deepened, forging bonds of friendship and mutual respect. The Cliverians, who had once seen humanity as a fledgling species, now regarded them as equals and as heroes. Word of the battle spread quickly across the galaxy. The Zorth, humiliated by their defeat, retreated to their territory, licking their wounds and vowing revenge. But their reputation had been tarnished. The galaxy, once cowed by their might, now saw them as fallible. Other species, inspired by humanity's bravery, began to question their own subjugation. Rebellions and uprisings broke out in Zorth-controlled territories, further weakening their grip on power. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and humanity was at the center of it all. On Earth, the news of the fleet's victory was met with a mix of relief and pride. The human race, once seen as insignificant by the galactic community, had proven its worth. The sacrifices made by the fleet were honored in ceremonies and memorials, their names etched into history. The survivors were hailed as heroes, but they remained humble, knowing that their victory had come at great cost. Admiral Carter, now a symbol of humanity's resilience, addressed the people of Earth in a broadcast that was heard across the galaxy. "We are not the strongest nor the most advanced," he said, "but we will always stand for what is right. That is our strength." The Cliverians, determined to honor their saviors, unveiled a monument on their homeworld. It stood tall and proud, a testament to the bravery and sacrifice of the human fleet. The monument bore the words, "To those who answer the call when no one else would." It became a pilgrimage site for both Cliverians and humans, a reminder of what could be achieved when species stood together against a common threat. In the years that followed, humanity's role in the galaxy changed dramatically. Earth became a beacon of hope and resilience, attracting allies from across the stars. The human fleet, once small and outdated, began to grow and modernize, incorporating technology and knowledge shared by the Cliverians and other allies. New ships were built, stronger and more advanced, crewed by a new generation of explorers and defenders. The lessons learned from the battle against the Zorth were etched into the design of these ships and the training of their crews. The Zorth, though still a threat, were no longer the dominant power they once were. Their defeat at the hands of humanity had emboldened their enemies and weakened their hold on the galaxy. The rebellions in their territory continued to grow, fueled by the knowledge that even the mighty Zorth could be defeated. Humanity, though wary of the Zorth's potential for revenge, remained vigilant. They knew the fight was not over, but they also knew they were no longer alone. The legacy of the battle extended beyond the military and political spheres. It became a cultural touchstone, a story told and retold across generations. Artists, writers, and filmmakers immortalized the bravery of the human fleet, their stories inspiring countless others to stand up for what was right. The phrase, "We don't run from bullies," became a rallying cry, a reminder of humanity's moral strength and determination. As the years passed, the survivors of the fleet became mentors and leaders, passing on their knowledge and values to the next generation. They spoke of the importance of unity, courage, and doing what was right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Their stories became the foundation of a new era for humanity, one defined by cooperation, resilience, and a commitment to justice. The final chapter of the story was written not in battle, but in peace. The Cliverians, having rebuilt their world, invited humanity to join them in a new alliance, a coalition of species dedicated to protecting the weak and standing against tyranny. The alliance, though still in its infancy, represented a new hope for the galaxy. It was a testament to what could be achieved when species put aside their differences and worked together for a common cause. As the human fleet patrolled the stars, their ships now symbols of hope and strength, they carried with them the lessons of the past and the promise of the future. They knew the galaxy was still a dangerous place, but they also knew they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The signal had summoned Earth's most dangerous fleet, and they had answered the call. Their actions had changed the course of history, proving that even the smallest light could shine brightly in the darkest void.